Today we're going to look at two additional practice problems for using functions. So the first is called poem.py. And I've gone ahead, I'm using PyCharm as my environment, and I've gone ahead and created a blank Python program called Poem. And the first thing I'm going to do while developing this program is make a comment that describes what it does. So, poem printer. Or I guess I could call it Poem Mad Libs. It's a little like Mad Libs if you've read through it. And I always like to include author information as well. So in this problem, we are asked to request from the user two parts of speech as input, a plural noun and adjective, and then output the following with those blanks filled in with what the user entered. And where we use functions, in addition to getting the input and output, is by converting the strings to the proper case. So the first blank is capitalized and the second blank is all lowercase. So let's get started with just the input. And we're going to test this program as we go because we like to practice incremental development. That's where we develop as little as possible and we run it so that we can make sure that if we have bugs, they will be as simple as possible to fix. Okay, so first off, we want to get a noun, really a plural noun. We'll go with noun for now. And as input, we want to get from the user, so please enter a plural noun. And I'm taking this string right from the problem description over here. Okay, please enter a plural noun. And then for an adjective, I'm going to take as input, and just to make things readable, more readable, I'm going to line up these equal signs with some space. Please enter an adjective. And again, I'm adding a space after my colon so the user isn't typing right on top of my colon. Okay. And now I'm simply going to print out those two words, and I'm going to run it and make sure everything works so far. And then I'm going to transform that to print out the poem that we're actually looking for. So I'm going to run poem, and let's see, put in Legos, and awesome. Legos awesome. Wonderful. Now I need to try and print out this poem. I'm going to try and do my poem first, and then try and figure out how to manipulate the strings to get the casing right, the capitalization. Okay, so what I actually want to say is nouns are red. Oh, and since I'm using commas, I don't need that. Nouns are red, violets are blue. I'm going to take adjective out and put that in a separate line like we have here. And then I'm going to print again. Monty Python is awesome. Woohoo. Okay, and then the awesome is coming from the user. So instead of awesome, I'm going to put in the adjective that was entered. Okay, oops, there we go. Okay, let's try to run this and see what we get. I'm going to enter Legos and awesome, just like the example. Great, we're so close. This looks very, very similar to what we're looking for, except Legos should be lowercase, as should awesome. But awesome should be lowercase, and Legos should have one single uppercase. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this might be called. One way to figure this out is just to type a dot, and PyCharm will automatically populate this. I don't know about other IDs, but this is great about PyCharm. Lower. That sounds awesome. Adjective.lower. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what we have. Legos. Awesome. Woohoo! It worked. Now the other thing I can do is actually open a web browser window, and I can actually Google it. So let's see, what words do we have in the problem? We want to capitalize the first. So I'm going to search for the programming language, the type of data I'm working with, Python string capitalize. And let's see if we can find an example. String capitalized in Python, Geeks for Geeks. Sure, looks good. And you'll gradually learn what websites you tend to understand and follow and resonate with. Okay, I don't often go to the Python documentation specifically, like python.org, because that tells you the full formalization of all the library functions. I like to see these functions used in practice. Like, how did somebody call it? What did it look like? And so sometimes I go to different websites. So this gives me, so string name dot capitalize. Does it have an example? Let's see. Okay, good. See, here's an output, name one dot capitalize. Good. That looks like what we're looking for. And so I love learning from examples. I think it's one of the fastest ways to learn how to code. So I'm going to say noun dot capitalize. And look, there it is. I didn't even have to type it. I could just hit tab and enter there. Let's try it. Let's see what we get. Okay, and we're going back to our example. We're going to type in Legos. And then awesome. Legos are red, violets are blue. Monty Python is awesome. Woohoo! Oh, I'm missing a comma. I just noticed I'm doing my final comparison. Legos are read, not red. So I did have some bugs in here. And that's where taking advantage of an example can really, really help. And I also needed that comma. So it wasn't quite done yet. I found some bugs that I needed to fix. But what I was looking for worked. So let me try this. Last time. Legos are red. And violets are blue. Monty Python is awesome. Woohoo. Except I do not like how that comma is going. So I'm going to replace my comma with a plus. If you recall, that's how we can remove that space in print. Go one more time. We'll see where we get. Legos and awesome. Yes. And there we have it. Wonderful. So we successfully completed our first one, which is working with string functions. And now we want to work with some numeric functions. Okay, so we're going to look at a program called MadFun. Okay. And this is going to be working with numeric functions by Emily Hill. And with the number of functions, we may need to use the math library, so we'll have to look out for that. Okay, so we're going to write a program, MadFun, that takes a decimal number as input from the user. Now, the key thing I see there, if we're using a decimal number, that means I'm going to have to convert my input. So when we're working with strings, we don't have to convert our input. But when we work with numbers, we do. So I'm going to have to, I think I'll just use eval, but that also would be a place where we could call for float. Okay, so I'm going to create a number variable. And I'm going to get as input, I'm going to wrap it with eval as well. Please enter a number. Okay. And then the first thing we want to do is print the absolute value of the number. Oops. So I'm going to try that first. Okay. I'm going to print num, but I want to print the absolute value. And I don't remember exactly how we might do that, so I'm going to Google. So I'm going to Google for Python absolute value. Good, it's automatically popping up for me. That's great. ABS is a built-in function with Python. Awesome. So let's try that. Let's see if it works. And now I'm going to test it. Okay, I'm going to run this one. I'm going to enter a number. Voila. And I do print out the absolute value. Now, one thing I've noticed here is that I haven't clearly indicated to the user who's running the program what that 8.9 is. I put a comment that it's the absolute value, but what would be better would be to tell the user that it's the absolute value. Now, I haven't done that in the sample output, so this would be optional, but I think in terms of best practice, that's a better way to do it. And so now the next step we're going to move on to, because that worked, is we are going to print out the number rounded to 0. And to help me kind of get this neat and tidy, I'm going to add a couple spaces padding so that everything kind of lines up. Rounded to 0 decimal places. Okay, let's take a look. What does that look like? So Python round, let's say to 2 decimals. I could probably go from 2 decimals to 0. Another popular website is Stack Overflow, and so that's coming up for me here. Okay, and he wants to round. Oh, good, and here we have, there's a round function, and we take, that looks like the number, and 2, we wanted to round to 2 decimals. In this example, the question was about rounding to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to guess that the second parameter for round is going to be the number of decimal places. Let's try this out. So I'm going to say round num 0. We're going to see what happens. Okay, I'm going to enter a number, negative 8.9. Good. 9.0, it did successfully round it. Now it left the 0.0 there. In our original example, we don't have that. But I would say this is close enough to what we're trying to capture here that we can move on to the final one. And the final one is square root of the rounded number's absolute value. So now we're going to take square root. And again, I'm going to space things out so they line up nice and neat. And I'm going to take the square root. Now I happen to know already that square root is in the math library, but let's follow through with our example. Let's see if, good, syntax math.square root. And we need to make sure that we import math at the top, just like they've done here. So let's make that happen. Now, import statements, by convention, typically occur at the very beginning of a Python program, before the rest of your code. That's why I put it up high. And I'm going to do math.square root. And what I'm trying to get is the rounded number's absolute value. So it sounds like I'm going to round it first, and then take the absolute value. Woo-wee. Okay. So I'm taking the square root of the rounded number's absolute value. I believe that will give us what we're looking for. Now I'm going to try it with this example here. Okay, so we're going to take negative 8.88. Good. Excellent. So that's exactly what we're looking for. I'm going to run it again because we have a second test case we can use for testing purposes. So I'm going to run it again and make sure that my solution matches this one. And it does. There you have it. Are you ready to try that on your own if you weren't able to get it before? Let's do it.